Okay, here we go. Sunday. Good evening, and welcome to another episode of True Story Live. Tonight's episode is Legacy, Our Place in History. We have quite a broadcast for you tonight, so we'll get to that in just a moment. First, I'll introduce my illustrious panel, starting with my beautiful, courageous warrior princess wife, Jen.
What does she say? She said,
Yeah.
Xena the Warrior Princess.
Yes, that's right.
I remember that show. I will not do that to you guys, even though I just kind of did.
You did a little bit. That's okay.
I could have really gone there with it, but didn't want to hurt your ears.
You could have.
Oh, great to see everybody in the chat, and it's wonderful always to spend any sort of time with Glenn and Jason, my wonderful husband. Good to be here.
Thank you. Also, we're taking a poll before I introduce Glenn. We're taking a poll. Am I too mushy with Jen on the broadcast? So you can put your answers in the chat. It's a poll. Jen used to do polls all the time. Now she doesn't anymore. Now I'm doing a poll.
Yep.
So there you go.
Oh, that's awesome.
So next up, our producer does a really good job, and also the writer of these past few broadcasts, and definitely an important one and a poignant one tonight. Before we get to that, we'll have Glenn say hello to the peoples.
Hi, good evening. How are you? And Liam Kerwin says nothing wrong with being too mushy, soppy.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Liam.
Soppy. Maybe he meant sappy, but maybe soppy's British.
No, he's British. Give him a chance. He's got real English.
Soppy is real.
Soppy.
I get the impression of like if you were to dip bread in milk.
Yeah, like sop you up with a biscuit.
Yes.
Which I do daily. Daily.
A little southern accent. You know, it's funny. Jen's originally from Louisiana, but she doesn't have much of an accent as far as I'm concerned because they moved away from there when she was young and moved to Virginia, which you live in Virginia, you can still have southern accent. I guess it depends on
Not really. I never. Well, maybe in the mountains. That's a little different, though.
That makes sense. Now, if you're in West Virginia, then that's a completely different story.
Yeah, it's near the mountains.
Yeah.
Although I did go off on you earlier this week with my southern twang.
You did. That's right.
That was silly. I listened to it a couple of times and made myself laugh.
It
was great. I needed a good laugh.
Yeah. Well, your laughter is musical to my ears, and that's not too soppy. That's just the truth.
Oh, I'm so glad.
All right. We have a few people in the chat. So, Jen, if you wouldn't mind, say hello to the people before we get started.
Hello, wonderful people. We have got Liam in the chat. We have Stephanie, Jaylyn, and Debbie. And I think that's it so far.
That's okay.
But more people are joining, so that's good. Hey, guys. Great to have you guys here. We're so glad that you're here tonight, especially tonight.
Yeah, tonight is an important night, and we'll get right into that. So if you are prone to emotions at all, I would definitely suggest you get a box of Kleenex and tune everything else out. And this is an important show, I believe, in at least to us here on the panel for many different ways. My mother is still influencing people from the other side of the river, so to speak. That's a term I heard used a long time ago, and there are some hymns that talk about that of going to the other side of the river and being in heaven and whatnot. And there's just something about that is touching to me, that idea. And you could look at it any way you want. The river being the veil between life and death, and so mentally for me, the imagery of it being a river that you cross when you cast off this mortal life, this body, and go into the next life. Of course, to people that don't believe there is anything after this, then I'm sure that sounds like rubbish. But to me, I have more than hope that there is something more, and that brings me comfort. So my mother went across the river in 2017, and a lot of people miss her dearly, and I do as well. And I'll never forget at her memorial how much I was able to see the number of lives that she touched while she was here. There were all different kinds of people, people that were believers, people that didn't believe. She had a number of gay and lesbian clients that she worked with, and they just loved her, and she treated them with grace and kindness and without judgment. And it was an amazing thing to watch all these people come together to celebrate her life. I get a little emotional just now even thinking about it, because I know what's coming, and we're going to get to that. Okay. All right. So we've gotten the hellos done. We've introduced everybody. And so we're going to dive right in. All right. A poignant and emotional show tonight. We dedicate this show to Cripps' mother, Linda, who sadly passed away about 3 years ago. Do we ever consider that what we do today leaves our mark on tomorrow? How do we wish to be remembered after we're gone from this earth? Tonight's show is legacy, and more specifically, how the choices we make in this life can be influential on others today, tomorrow, and years ahead. One of our forthcoming topics is intimacy. And in a way, this show is legacy via the intimacy of words. It's not something we readily think of. And now we're about to find out whether you too see the everlasting power of words and how the way we speak to each other does matter. Legacy for the show is simply being remembered for who we were. People don't just die in our heads. We remember, we reflect. Sometimes we even refer when we need guidance. The link is in the description, our place in history. Give it a listen when you get a chance. And about that, Glenn wrote, a dreamy, ethereal, droning synth intro builds with light emotional wonder and brass swells as a triumphant inspirational theme slowly unfolds, bursting open with lush orchestral waves, angelic choir, and ceremonial drums. It is after consultation with Cripps that I have decided to share a letter from Linda to me, Glenn. This is difficult, but the timing feels right. Val is Cripps' father, Shannon is Cripps' sister, and Philip is Linda's therapist. Respectfully, we invite you to read this letter in advance of the show. Please consider the essence of these words, which is one must honor themselves no matter what. So the link is in the description to read the letter on your own, but we will be reading it at some point after the write-up, and we go through a few questions, just to let you guys know. Believers, I trust, will see the picture of how Linda's faith and choices were intertwined. Legacy, too, is marked by choices, sometimes hard choices. How does one show humility, respect, acceptance when it feels like the world has ended? How does one find the courage to act it all out as one might when one feels gutted and inconsolable? The truth of it is you have to, or you wither. Easy to say, hard to do. It's that choice word again. Think of it this way, the legacy of each person in this equation, each family, children, friends, etc., could have been different. Not better, not worse, just different. Our choices are far-reaching. What you have read, what you'll hear, is a microcosm of life, a nanosecond in time containing many of those things we try to present on TSL. Is not that someone has the courage to use these words, a legacy on its own? It's all there. All it takes is to open one's eyes. And the following words are words that are found in Linda's writing, which you will hear momentarily. And I will read them after when we get back to that point. And there it is. Those words could have been made a million stories, but they made this one. Comments and questions invited. It's all an open book. Then we have questions for each of you. They will be put on screen during the broadcast. Meantime, much has been spoken about connections between believers and non-believers. I wonder how each person here defines what is a soulmate. Maybe you dismiss as fantasy the thought that there can be a spiritual connection between two people who see the world differently. Regardless of how you see it, I ask you to consider how the giving of ourselves can and does define much of our legacy. Linda loved Winnie the Pooh, and so it's only fitting that the final quote go with that. It says it all. And I'll read it again at the end. But what day is it? Asked Pooh. It's today, squeaked Piglet. My favorite day, said Pooh. Okay. So scrolling back up to the top, and we ask a couple questions before we get to Linda's letter. First question we ask is, do we ever consider what we do today leaves our mark on tomorrow? That's the first question we have, and I'll answer first. Do we ever consider that what we do today leaves our mark on tomorrow? I'm going to be honest. I have in the past thought about this idea of legacy, and it seems there are certain people out there that consider a good job and making a lot of money that leaves a legacy. People in politics, they think that being president or being a governor or in some public office, that leaves a legacy. And still other people think that being a good parent is a legacy, because you're literally passing along things to your children that hopefully, and even your grandchildren that go on long after you've passed from this world. So for me, yes, I've considered it, but I considered it even more when Glenn sent me the write-up from my mom. I don't think I had ever read that one before. When Glenn and I reconnected after my mom died in 2017, we communicated quite a bit, and at some point he did pass along things, letters and things like that to me that I read after the fact, and it was very healing for me to read, and very difficult at times to read my mom's words, especially in the wake of her dying. And then, so this one was just as emotional, even 3 years after that event. And we'll get to that, and maybe you'll see some of that. But I realize that someone that doesn't know her, never met her, it may not have the same effect on you as it did on me. But she's very instrumental in even Jen and I being together in the first place, because one of the things that she wrote, I believe, helped Jen at a time when she was making some pretty tough decisions in her life. And so I'll always be grateful that Glenn kept these writings from her and didn't throw them away. And I wouldn't assume he would throw them away, but you never know. Okay, so yes, I do consider what we do. And for me, I want to leave a mark with how I treat people, rather than what kind of job I had, or whether I was an actor or a government official or any of that. None of that matters to me. What matters to me is when I pass, of people talking about me and talking about how well I treated people, and that I really cared, and I was a good listener, and people could come to me if they were struggling with something. And now that I'm married, I would love it to be said that I was a great husband, and that I was there for my wife and supportive in every way possible, and was someone that was safe for her, someone that she could come to and rely upon. And And if we're ever blessed with kids, then I would add to that what I mentioned earlier, which is leaving a legacy where I pour love and encouragement into our children, so that long after I'm gone, they're able to pass that along to their children as well. So uh, I'm still praying and hoping that God does bless us with children. But if not, I've got three nieces and a nephew, and I have poured love and encouragement into them. I'm sure I could always do better. As they get older, it becomes a little bit more difficult. When they're children, they're just happy to have. The youngest one called me Unca because couldn't say uncle, so he calls me Unca. But they they're just happy for me to spend time with them and play with them in the pool, and have them come spend the night, and let them watch videos and make popcorn and pizza and things like that. Um, so those things are important to me, and I enjoy putting my efforts into that kind of legacy to be remembered as Unca, who spent quality time with them. So there's my answer to that one. Jen, would you like to go next? Do we ever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you read it one more time?
Oh, absolutely. Do we ever consider that what we do today leaves our mark on tomorrow?
Yeah. I don't think my answer is going to be as beautifully spoken and eloquent as yours because
Oh,
it just very much um, saddles right up with how I feel.
mm,
But I do think about it a lot. I think there are days that I get caught up in life and I don't think about it, but but there are other days that I really do focus on that, and it creates in me someone who's intentional when it comes to loving people and being there for people, seeing people. I work with kids in an after school program, and
mhm,
um, I think in this fast paced world and being at school and then being at an after school program and only having a couple of hours in the evening to see their parents, um, it makes me think about, these kids, do they feel seen? Do they feel heard? And that's something that I try to do for them at my
yes,
job, but the people around me too. Um, right now, I'm going through some stuff with my family, and I don't feel seen or heard. And I don't know if they realize that. And it's caused me a lot of grief and pain. But I do wonder as well. I wonder if they feel seen and heard by me. I spent
mm,
14 years in an abusive marriage, and I was systematically isolated from my family. And even when I was with them, I was on my phone a lot,
yeah,
um, just living in anxiety of if my ex-husband was going to be upset that I was taking too long. Was he messaging me
right,
to leave? He'd
right,
be at work working while I was spending time. I just couldn't even be present. And I have no idea how that affected my family. And I can only imagine that maybe because they didn't understand and they didn't know what was going on because I just
mhm,
didn't share with them and they didn't ask
right,
um, what the messages they were getting from me, that maybe they weren't important. And I wasn't prioritizing them because my ex made it about me choosing him over them or them over him. It was like it was never us all together as a family.
mhm,
Um, and there was a lot of anger if he felt like I was, spending too much time with other people. So
yeah,
just made for a big mess. So, when I think about them and how that affected them, and the legacy, the memories, it breaks my heart that I can't rewind that time and do it over. There's so much regret. I have a lot of nieces and nephews that at that time while I was married to him, they were younger. And I have some nephews that I hadn't gone to one single recital of theirs during school. That breaks my heart.
yeah,
It's awful.
yeah,
Um, but what we do with our time now, from here forward, and what kind of legacy while we're still here, what do we want that to look like? And like I said before, being intentional. I think being intentional is very important.
sure,
Sometimes we can get really wrapped up in life and not being in the present. We've talked about that here on the show before.
Mhm.
either living too much in the past and looking back, or too much in the future of what we want or hope for or fear, or, all kinds of stuff, and just not being present in the moment. I think
Mhm.
being present in the moment can really help us with leaving a better legacy. So that's
Mm.
my answer.
Well, that was very nice, babe. That was no one expects you to say exactly the same thing I do, and that was very good and very moving. Thank you for sharing that. And Glenn's up for this one. Do we ever consider that what we do today leaves our mark on tomorrow?
Yeah, well, I think I've considered it a lot more since TSL
Right.
restarted when I started to hear a lot more stories. But past, I
Yeah.
would say that the focus has been on my children, much like Stephanie said. I was tended to think of legacy as role models for children. But the other thing that was really, I think, even more pointed is having an 8-year-old child ripped away from you by their mother, and then having to consider very seriously how you play this is going
Yeah.
to have a huge influence on what we call it legacy, but how these kids see the world
Sure.
tomorrow, and what you're going to leave. Because if you take the attitude that you want to revenge against mum, and what fill the kids' heads with that vitriol and hate,
Hmm.
you're not leaving a legacy that to be proud of. So yes, I was very mindful in that situation that what I was doing in that moment was going to have a huge effect tomorrow. Yeah,
Mm.
that's the main one. Thanks.
Sure. That's good. Thank you. And I've heard you talk about your children, and I'm glad to say that you do spend time with them, and they're in your life, which is wonderful. There's a lot of us that don't have that. They don't have a parent that's invested enough, that uh, talks to them and calls them, reaches out to them to see how they're doing, and would be there for them if they ever needed that. I envy that. Uh, my own mother, when she was here, she was almost too involved. She's almost too involved in my life, but when they're gone, then you think back to those times, and it's just something that you have to learn how to miss, and that can be a difficult thing.
Yeah.
And but every day, I think about the impact that she had in my life, and the legacy that she left continues on in me, just like I was talking about, and the way that I kind of answered this second question a little bit, but we're going to go over it again, maybe in a little different way. So the question reads, how do we wish to be remembered after we are gone from this earth? I mentioned, and it was my mistake that I kind of mixed those two together rather than taking them one by one. But I mentioned that for me, being a good father, if I'm allowed to be, and a good uncle, those are two things. And I also mentioned that the way I treat people is the way that I would like to be remembered. And being a good husband, I mentioned that as well. Basically, just to be remembered as a decent human being, a kind human being, and not for having been cruel and easy to anger, being patient, all the fruits of the spirit for those that are believers and know what those fruits are. The first one being love, and the Bible says that they'll know we are Christians by our love, and it's the thing that Paul said it's the most important of the fruits. And then so if I am talked about as being someone that loved well, um, that would make me very happy to know. What about you, Jen? How do you wish to be remembered after you're gone from this earth?
Um, I would say as well, second the things that you said about being known for how I loved people.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um, I feel like I love very deeply,
you do.
and getting better at. I think I've always had the desire to be very vocal about it, and I think to some degree I am. But then I think I shy away from sharing that as much with people that aren't that way.
Mhm.
For example, I have a brother that isn't really into emotions,
Right.
talking about deep stuff.
Sure.
Although he's surprised me at times. I think I would be a lot more gushy and lovey-dovey on him if I knew that he wouldn't recoil.
Oh, yeah, that
Not
makes
that he recoils, but over the last few months, he's sent me a couple of texts that really touched me, and I almost thought it was a joke because it was so deep and
right.
touching. I was like, okay, is he being serious or
So
making a
someone
joke?
else got a hold of his phone.
Oh my gosh, like who's talking to me? Um, but yeah, I definitely I think, when I was younger, I had dreams of, being a known children's book writer or, leaving
Sure.
my mark in that sense. And I still want to do that, but that's not anywhere near what's more important to me. Just being known for my love for God and my faith and trust in Him, and my love for other people. Um, and just and being, I think being authentic too. I think there's such an impression that puts on people when you're authentic and open. It encourages other people to do that, and I see such a rampant um, societal norm of going the opposite direction of that. People being, I guess, being afraid to be authentic, or just not knowing how, or it's just not normal. It seems.
Right.
And so in being authentic, or as authentic as I can be, and truthful and honest and loving and open,
Mhm.
that being encouraging for other people to do the same.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Jen. Okay, Glenn's up on this one. How do we wish to be remembered after we're gone from this earth?
Yeah, I think you two covered it pretty well. I just add that in this case, it really is demonstrated by your actions in the world. I mean, you can say all the words you want, but if you don't
yeah,
act it out, people are not really going to remember your words as much. You got to back it up with substance. And Linda, in her letter, she backed it up with substance. So the two go hand in hand. There's no point just blabbing your mouth off and then just hiding in the corner. You got to come out. So yeah, thanks.
Agreed. Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, I just want to comment on that before we move forward. Yeah, someone can tell you they love you every day. They can make that effort to say it, but without the actions, the question is, do you believe them? And for me, to get snappy for a minute about love languages, my number one love language is acts of service. Um, because of that, someone can say they love you, but if they don't back it up with action, then there's not much to it. So I agree with what Glenn said, 100%. And fortunately, at least with my wife, she does both. She says every day that she loves me, and says very kind, encouraging things to me all the time. But she definitely backs it up with action. And so I never have to wonder, just listening to the words, I never have to wonder, well, does she really love me? And I try to do the same thing. Um, and that's
and you
important.
do. You
Oh,
don't just try; you succeed.
oh, thank you. It's important. I'm not going to talk about this very long, but it's important with the love languages. I think this is a good point, that whatever way you best show love, that's great. That's great if you are able to show your wife or friends or family members that you love them. But it's even better if you find the way that they best receive love and work in that area. Just as, for instance, if someone best receives love by words, then give them a lot of words, give them cards and letters and things like that, so that they know and they feel loved in that way. It's important.
Yeah.
Okay, moving forward, tonight's show is legacy, and more specifically, how the choices we make in this life can be influential on others today, tomorrow, and years ahead. One of our forthcoming topics is intimacy, and in a way, the show is legacy via the intimacy of words. It's not something we readily think of, and now we're about to find out whether you too see the everlasting power of words and how the way we speak to each other does matter. Legacy for this show, simply being remembered for who we are, is simply being remembered for who we were. People don't just die in our heads. We remember, we reflect, and sometimes we even refer when we need guidance. And okay, so I'll just go over this again. I'm gonna skip the part with the music, and then Glenn says, "It is after the consultation with Cripps that I've decided to share a letter from Linda to me. Glenn, this is difficult, but the timing feels right." And again, mentioned in the letter, Val is my father, Shannon is my sister, and Philip is Linda's therapist. Respectfully, we invite you to. It actually says read the letter, but Jen is going to do the honors. We thought it would be better. I can obviously read it, but it sounds good from the female voice and perspective. And I love to hear Jen's voice. And I know a lot of people have commented on how soothing her voice is. And so she's going to do the honors. So just sit back. It's a fairly long letter, but I believe it's worth every word. So we'll give Jen a few moments, and she will read this letter from my mother to Glenn, and I hope it is meaningful to everyone listening. Thank you.
You're okay if I get started?
I am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. I woke up early. I woke up early with many thoughts left from our conversation last night. I decided to work on my patio, or what I would call my garden, and I managed to get some clarity. I also went for a nice walk, and that was even more helpful. Now, if only I could play a game of tennis, I could solve all the problems of the world. These thoughts are clear in my head, but not so clear when I try to write them. I will start with your comment that we have a lifelong friendship relationship. I think that you are right. In that sense, we are not making a decision about ending our relationship. We are actually making decisions about where our relationship is going in terms of the physical world. We truly found a soulmate experience with each other. I have no doubt about that. Even as I'm writing my thoughts, I would not be surprised to find that you are doing the same and coming up with the same conclusions. And because of our connection, I feel your frustration and I feel your sadness, which I know you do not want to call depression, so I won't name it that. But I do know that what you are feeling touches me and it makes me sad for you. I also know that you will not accept any decision that I might make and call it for your good. This leads me back to sharing with you what I know is good for me. I think I will just continue to share my truth with you as my truth becomes clearer, the truth that tells me what is good for me, and then eventually you will decide what is best for you. Each day that passes of my life, of my experience on the road less traveled, I am more clear about what my biggest desires are for my life. I desire to be in a relationship where I can practice being a couple. I am in a relationship with you and I am practicing very hard things and very good things. But I desire to have someone that I can see once in a while that doesn't cost $2,000. I am also in a relationship with myself, and that is important to me as well. In each of my couple sessions, my desire for that grows stronger, but I must consider that which I see to be of equal importance to me, and that is that I am obedient to God and to what He has called me to do in my lifetime, for as long as that life might last. With each session I am privileged to be involved in with my clients, I see where God is directing me on my road. I see my life as a most precious gift that God has given me, and it is to Him that I owe my gratitude for all that He has allowed me to have. I have been so greatly blessed. My childhood dream was to be a wife and a mother and to be a teacher. God gave me Val so that I, little Linda, could have the opportunity to be a loving wife and a connected mother. I wanted so much to do it differently than was done for me, and I think that I accomplished that. It is true that I did not have all in my marriage that I wanted, but I did have a lot. And if this were all, it would be plenty. Much that I did not get from Val was not his to give me. It was up to me to fill those needs. I made many mistakes with my children as well, but look what God gave me in spite of myself. I don't just love my children, they are my very best friends, and they bring me such joy. I now see Val as a man that is selfish, but that selfishness comes from his fear. I see that he lacks the courage and the energy to move away from comfort, and that is sad to me. He came so close to experiencing this great gift that God has for those of us who will walk toward what we fear. I truly believe that Val and I were meant to work through our problems and to be a living example to others. We have failed. But we are good people, and God will not waste the parts of us that remain good and the parts that remain willing to be used by Him. When I was running this week, Leslie said that she could see that I get determination from my desire to be authentic. I said that was true, and I also said that I'm running so that those who follow me do not buy into the lies of society. All those lies about relationships and aging and beauty. It is my connection to the community, and it is the calling of God that leads me to live the rest of my life the way He has asked me to live it. There is a place one can come to on the road where He allows some to see things with a certain amount of wisdom and with a unique vision. What I see from where I am now is that I probably will not have the opportunity to practice on a couple relationship. My time to do this was to be with Val, and it seems highly unlikely that this will ever happen. Val does not deserve me, and if he came to me now and said he was wrong and wanted another chance, I doubt I could ever do the practice thing with him. As I see life as cycles, I see that this cycle has passed for me. I will keep the desire, however, and whatever frustration that may bring seems to be balanced by knowing that I see what really matters in my life and really counts for God, and that is more important to me now than those other things. I think I am okay with being alone. I give so much of myself in my profession that I have comfort and peace when I am alone. Sure, there are a few times each month when I wonder what it would be like to have a date or something. Sometimes I want to fall asleep in someone's arms, but mostly I am so tired that I don't even notice that I am alone. I know that I am called a therapist, a counselor, but that is really not what I am. I am a minister, and almost every client that comes to me is sent by God. I am not a typical therapist. Only this week have I come to accept that that is okay, that I am so different. Philip's words are always close to my heart. Linda, do what you do. And that is what I am doing. I am doing it in the way that only Linda can do it for as long as God will allow. I feel very honored that my life has been so full and so blessed, and I have so much to give. Meeting you has allowed me to be where I am today. To have experienced what you have given me is part of why I can give so much hope to my clients. God sent you to me because He knew that I needed something that I had never had before, and I needed it as soon as possible. I will never understand why I've been so fortunate, and I will spend the rest of my life being grateful to you for being willing to give so much to me. As my Aunt Pat would say, don't try to figure it out, just accept it. Accepting these gifts means certain things for my future as I see it today. I heard in your voice last night an almost desperate cry. Sorry. To have more information. It is my love for you that tells me I cannot ignore the questions that I hear in your voice. I'm hoping that this letter gives you the information you need to make the decisions that you need to make. And believe it or not, I have total faith that whatever it is that guides you will confirm in your heart and give peace to your mind about what is best for you. I keep thinking about what an incredible feeling it is to know that your being has so dramatically affected someone else's being. What a privilege, and how often an experience that is missed by so many. I know that our relationship is special, and whether you believe it or not, you can have this with someone else. I know you don't believe me now, but it is my intuition that tells me what lies ahead for you. You can have more than one soulmate. I will always be in a relationship with you as we have described it, but I am not available for a relationship with you that involves us being in the same physical space. I will always listen to what you have to tell me, even if it means to share that you have found love. I would welcome you in my home whenever you could come, and I would love you as a soul loves its mate. I must stay here and do what I do until God tells me otherwise. I feel Him encouraging me to be grateful and enjoy where my journey has taken me and where I have landed. I feel Him calling to me to remain committed to the holiness and sacrament of marriage, although I am not married legally to Val, and although Val has divorced me. This is so crazy, I know, and I don't expect you or anyone to understand. This is not about Val and Val's commitments. It is only about my own, and for now, He calls me to move on my journey alone, and that this will be a journey full of peace and joy beyond my wildest expectations. True, this may not be as I've imagined spending my life, but I know enough now from what God has shown me that if I will make friends with this unanswerable question, it will all make sense to me someday. I am most certain that no one will ever love me. Sorry, guys.
It's okay. Take your time.
I am most certain that no one will ever love me as you have. And I will not have this feeling with anyone else. I think there is something for me here, and it is beyond the concept of seeking what feels best to me. I can't explain it. It is truly a new place on the road less traveled. I know to some it seems like I am doing this martyr thing, but I do not see it like that. To whom much is given, much is expected, and it is my giving that brings me my peace and joy, and I am at least, for the moment, where I am supposed to be. But it isn't even like a choice between you and something. It is more like what I think is next. I have no idea what is exactly next. I wonder how it could compare to what it is like being with you. Monday, after talking with you on the phone, I have done my jogging thing. My goal is to do as much of 3 miles as possible by my birthday and dedicate my 50th year of life to 6 miles. I thought about your comment about feeling married, about just going through a divorce and not seeing how you could do another in the same year. Of course, I totally understand your thinking. The whole process would hold much grief for both of us. But I also see the process you go through, only I see a little bit differently than you. You feel your frustration, you deal with it, and then you move away from it and feel strengthened with renewed determination. I just wonder if you are meant to spend more time in your frustration to see for sure if there's not more there for you to consider. Just a thought. Thursday, my session with Philip was good, of course. This is all pretty deep, I think. I suppose that my life is the picture and you are part of the frame. If you accept that life is a cycle, which is what many intellectual non-Christians want to use as their basis for comfort and understanding, then I can go with that. I am in a different cycle than you are. If we were in the same space, perhaps we would work on how to bridge the gap. I am not sure how that would work. If my life with Val had not ended, I would naturally be in the next cycle of being a grandmother and doing some crone things. I doubt if I would take my job as seriously as I do as a married person, my job as a therapist and as a crone. But that is not how my story goes. I am single. I am 50. I am in a cycle of life that understands about fantasies and fairy tales. As Philip said, why don't those fairy tales go beyond when the princess meets her prince? This is never going to be one of those situations where I say that I don't love you anymore. I wonder, would that be easier for you? It will be about accepting that our worlds cannot come together because of distance, and distance is more than geographical. You say things like, how can we let this go? It isn't letting go, it is moving to what is next. The relationship, is our foundation. It is knowing that for us there is a next, and it is wonderful. For you, it may be finding someone else to love and be loved by, but for me, it is perhaps spending the rest of my life being in relationship with me and being in love with my crone life. Wouldn't that be okay, and does that have to look like a second choice? I don't feel it is a second choice. I feel sadness and much grief about the fact that my life did not get to go to the next stage in the natural way. That would be where the two people watch their children parent and they spend time together in a very new and meaningful way. I don't think I can go back to that. If you were here, living in the States, I would still be very involved with my life as it is. It would be hard because the wounded part of me wants to just accept what you offer. It is hard for me to turn that down, but when we look at the picture that is my life, I see myself alone, not in a partnership with anyone. You are the prince, Glenn, and it is time for your fairy tale. It is natural and it is next for you. But I am not the princess. I am the queen, and that is not the same. I do see the truth about frustration and how difficult this is for you as a measurement of how deeply you feel. In some sense, it is the same for me. But my view is different. You are looking ahead, and I am looking back. Neither of us can compromise on the experience that we have had with each other and what we feel. But there is a behavior part to love. There is a logical part to love. There is a reality part to love. Just the feeling is not enough. I know this only because I am a crone. What I missed in intimacy, I truly do not believe I can get back. We all don't get to have it all, even though I think we are all meant to desire it and go for it all. And not having experienced a marriage as I had dreamed is part of my story, and it is part of why I am good at what I do. Let me use Mother Teresa as an example. Many think that she sacrificed to do what she did. I don't think so. I think she was one of the privileged few that could clearly see her picture, and she lived her passion. She did not give up a life as a wife and mother. She also did not buy into the myths of society that women's first choice is to be a wife and mother, and if that does not work, she should work really hard to find something else that will bring her a reasonable amount of happiness and satisfaction. Her life, as it was, called to her. She not only heard the call, but responded to the call. Everyone has a calling if they will listen. Some have more than one calling. One's calling is no easier or harder than another's. One's calling is no better than another's. What is important is that you be in the picture that has your name and only your name on it. I was called to give birth to Jason and Shannon. I know that. I was even called to be married to Val. And now my picture, at least for this moment, has me doing what I'm doing. Your picture is you, your kids, and you're responding to your calling, and maybe, just maybe, there is another person in your picture. The truth is, Glenn, based on my truth today and based on what I see in my picture, we cannot live in the same space. My life is here and your life is there. And this is a miracle, and it is wonderful, and it is extremely difficult to come to grips with. This situation calls us both to stretch to see a view of life that is very different from the way most perceive love and their choices in the picture that is their life. Monday, after my parents left, I write this to you as my next thoughts, regardless of my numbness feeling about the time with my parents. Even in my moments of numbness and sadness, I still see life as such a gift and such an adventure. I wish that I could live my life in more than one way. I wish that I could live right in the city, like right in a high-rise apartment where everyone walks to work and does not own a car. I wish I could live out in the country, miles from anywhere. I wish I could live in northern Michigan by the water. I want to watch the water grow cold and freeze and then warm again. I wish I could be a professor at a university. I wish I could be a woman that married one man and stayed married until death, and we were wise with our grandchildren. I wish I would be single and prove to other women that it is not second on the list, it is a choice equal to all others. I wish I could travel all over the world, not as a tourist, but as someone who knows how to visit where the real people live. I would like to own a bookshop. I would like to buy a real big house in Charlotte and take in children that no one wants. I want to go back to school and get my doctorate, but what it would be in, I have several choices. I would like to be a minister and fight the battle of women equality in the church. I want to be somebody famous writing a book and touring the country, and I want to be unknown. The list goes on. Some of these things I can do in my lifetime, but not all. I wish I could come to Australia and be married to you and be a stepmother to your children and be a family. It is on the list, but it doesn't call my name as if it's only my name. And I guess that being on the road is about learning to hear what does not call your name. Today, I asked myself some questions about why I fell in love with you as I did. Looking back, I can see that part of it had to do with my neediness. I needed to be a princess. I needed to be heard and honored. I see that most people fall in love because of their neediness. It is part of the romantic stage. And then, if the relationship is to mature, there has to be a time and a place to work through to the other stage of love. We do not have the time or the place to see how we can work through. I am not a princess with princess needs. It has taken me a long time to hear God calling me to the next stage of my life, which is the crone or grandmother stage. I really am a queen, perhaps a single queen, but still a queen. Just as Val could not give me what I needed, you cannot give me this part. This must come from me. I am ready now to go there, to the next stage, with joy and great anticipation, and I owe so much of my readiness to you. I don't think you can go there with me. I think you can only cheer from the sidelines and know that you are an instrumental in my growth. So if you are asking me now what is good for me, this is what is good for me. I need to embrace the next stage of life, alone for now, and I want to. Leaving the mother stage is hard for me. I am good at it. I love it. And it has brought me so much joy. But won't the next stage do the same? I have clarity, and that is good. Unfortunately, having clarity does not make whatever comes next easy. I will have to resend this many times to remind myself of the truth. The truth has many faces and is often affected by feeling.
Wow. Well, first of all, Jen, thank you for reading that. You did a wonderful job, and I appreciate the emotion that you put into it. And there's a couple times I had my mic on mute. I didn't want to be a distraction, so there's a couple times that I got a little choked up myself. So, very, very meaningful that you were willing to read that, and I think that was a solid choice to have it be read that way.
Thank you, Glenn, for sharing it with us.
Yeah, without Glenn actually sharing that, I mean, I think it's so impactful, and it does fit in this topic of legacy. And for those of you interested in knowing, that was written on near my mom's 50th birthday, which was back in 1998. 19 more years she lived from that point. She died in 2017 at age 69, and she had a heart issue with the sac that surrounds the heart filled and suffocated her heart. So it was quick, fortunately for her, but we will all continue to miss her. And because tonight's topic is legacy, I just want to add that her legacy continues. She's touched so many lives, and just speaking for myself, she taught me quite a lot earlier in her life before she went into counseling and started working on herself more. There were things, just like with any mother, things that she did that hurt me, and things that she did that later in life she probably wished that she could do it over again. But as she said in the letter, she loved being a mother, and she was a good mother, especially in the last 9 years of her life. We were much closer than we had been for a while, and I am so grateful to have had that time with her before she left this earth. And I would never do anything to change that time with her. And it has touched me and still touches me. It's just interesting to me that even that she's in a different place, but yet her words still hold such gravity and can have such impact.
Yeah.
So before we move forward, I just think it's important to know that each one of us can have this type of impact. We can leave our words for people to read, And even when we're not here anymore, what we do in this life does matter, and the kind of legacy that we leave.
It matters.
Yes, it matters, and we can touch people's lives. So before we continue, I just want to give Glenn an opportunity, if he would like to say anything about what we've read. Glenn, if you want to fill in any of the details of, we didn't talk about doing this, but I feel like there, at least to offer you the opportunity to say on your end, if you wanted to share anything, then feel free to do so.
Jen, I thought you did a beautiful job. You did an absolute 100% justice, and
Yes.
exceedingly proud that you did that.
Yeah.
So
sorry, I got choked up.
No apologies necessary.
I don't think you know what choked up means. If you saw what I think, I'm emotionally burned out from writing this show that I had nothing left. I think I drank 3 gallons of water.
Had to replenish your body.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not wrong. I was an absolute mess for a long time, like hours. I just,
Glenn.
Yeah.
well, what can you say? I mean, it's emotional in every respect. It's just,
Yeah.
and it seems to get so much more valid and relevant as the years pass. So that sort of defines it. It is a legacy in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, amazing. So thanks, Jen. Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for letting me.
Yeah. So I'll fill in a couple little parts, and to say that at the point of writing this, my parents were divorced, and later on, she did feel led to get back with Val, which, I was not incredibly happy with that decision, but she had her own reasons for doing that. She felt like God was telling her to reconcile with him. And it worked out, at least in some ways, for a while, because she mentioned in the letter being a grandmother. And my sister, her first daughter, Dre, I think recently just turned 19. She's in college. And so shortly after, or right around the time that she wrote this, my sister did get pregnant and have a girl. And then she had 2 more girls and a boy. So 4 grandkids. And fortunately, she did get a chance to see all of them. And there are pictures of her holding the youngest, Finn, who just turned 9. And she loved them all, and she spent time with them, and she breathed into their lives, and she was such a great grandmother, and they have fond memories of her. And so I'll leave it at that. That she continued to check off her list and do a lot of the things. I think one of my only disappointments for her was she always wanted to move to Northern Michigan, and I was supportive of her doing that. That's a place that we have a vacation. We have relatives that have a vacation home on the lake, and it's a place that we go as often as we can, usually about once a year, but it's worth it. My mom loved this place. It was a place where she felt connected. She felt more connected to herself in Michigan, and it's the same for me. And so in this particular place that she was able to relax and put all the work behind her, and do some journaling and walk on the beach and go
puzzles.
Puzzles. And she loved the cherries. Traverse City, which is the area close to where the lake house is, they're known for their cherries, and every year they have a cherry festival, and she would go in every year and buy cherries and take them back with her. And it just was a wonderful time. And I'll add one more thing. It's when I was praying for a wife. I've been praying for a wife for a long time, and she it was important to her for me to pray with me. And so we went to the edge of a river that's close to Elk Rapids, and she had me wade around in the river and find a stone to remember that moment by, and pray for my future wife. Interestingly enough, I was praying for the wife I have now, and not the one that I chose after that happened. And I actually still have the stone that
Yep.
that I found in the river. But the thing is, my mom was very invested in me being married and having kids and having a family. I just regret that I hadn't met Jen until after my mom crossed the river. So, but I do believe that she's looking down on us. I do believe that up there they have some awareness, or at least they're given some information. I can't imagine a person that was uh, so involved in their children's life of just being there and not getting any information whatsoever. It's just a personal belief. I'm not saying it's backed up by scripture or anything, but it's just what I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, so if anyone else doesn't have any more comments about what we just read, so you guys, if you want to read this for yourself, Glenn put the link in the description, so when you have more time, you can go and those words are there for everyone to read at your leisure. So thank you for doing that again, Jen, and thank you for listening, guys. And we'll move on. So the next part is believers, I trust, will see the picture of how Linda's faith and choices are intertwined. I love this statement. It's more of a statement than it is a question. Believers, I trust, will see the picture of how Linda's faith and choices are intertwined. My mother's faith was very important to her. She became a believer at age 16. Her uncle, Jerry, was a pastor, and she had gone to one of his services, and she accepted the Lord at that time. And her whole life, she was trying to be a better person and allowing the Holy Spirit to make her into the likeness of Christ. And it influenced me as well. And both my parents, in different ways, influenced me and in helping me be a believer myself. Of course, when I became an adult, it was important to me that my faith be based on my own journey, but I can't say that they didn't play a definite part of that. So the statement is, the trust will see the picture of how Linda's faith and choices are intertwined. She made a lot of choices based on her faith. Some of them I may not agree with, but they were her choices. And the faith was intertwined in so many ways. The way she raised her family, making sure that we were taken to church. And she was a very big fan of hymns. And when the churches started to change over to more modern music, she was always looking for a church that still played the old hymns. And they're out there. They're harder to find now. But these hymns are meaningful, way more meaningful, and a lot of them even have the gospel in them. It's rather than just repeating the same word 50 times or the same sentence 50 times. And she just really enjoyed that. She also enjoyed sermons, and she and I would go to church together sometimes, and then we would have these conversations about what we heard. And she made sure we went to a Christian school, and I am grateful for that, because during that period of time of going to private Christian school, they made us memorize scripture, and I still remember some of those scriptures to this day. So her choices affected us as children, and her faith also led her to work on herself constantly and make changes. And she would look back at her life and see things that she felt like she did wrong, and she was always trying to improve. So specifically, the faith that she had, you can't separate that from your life. I mean, if you're a believer, it should be intertwined with every decision that you make, and it was for her. She just continued right up to the day she died. She continued influencing other people. And I mentioned that people came to the memorial, people whose lifestyle she may not have agreed with. but because her faith was so intertwined, it wasn't in a negative way. It wasn't where she felt like she had to be judgmental and hateful of other people. She was loving, and that's the point. The point is being loving to me. The point is being loving to other people. We're commanded by Christ to love one another and to show our love towards others, and my mother did that in a great way.
Yeah.
Um, so that those are my comments about that. Jen, do you have a comment? It's not really a question; it's more of a statement. And I know you didn't uh, know my mother too well, but I'm sure if you have any comments to make about that one, certainly allow you the time.
Um, Not really, but I just I commend her, and I do
Yeah,
think it's a wonderful legacy of love.
yeah, I would agree. Okay. Legacy 2 is marked by choices, sometimes hard choices. How does one show humility, respect, and acceptance when it feels like the world has ended? That'll be the next question. So, how does one show humility, respect, and acceptance when it feels like the world has ended? This is it's a challenging question. I've had many struggles in my life, and there have been times in the past, especially not as much now, but it's hard to have humility when you're struggling. Uh, at least it has been for me. It's easy to focus on the particular issue, whatever it is that you're going through, and have that kind of overtake your entire world. You know, it's like the idea of there being storm clouds above you, and you can't see the sun through the clouds. It can be difficult. I feel like I've learned humility because of the storms, because of the struggles, but it hasn't always been easy for me. So I think that's difficult. Respect and acceptance, accepting the struggles of life, I have found to be difficult. Again, much easier now because I've been through so many different things, and have learned to be accepting of things. It doesn't mean it's easy, uh, but uh, I learn more each as I move forward in this life, more and more respect and acceptance. So when it feels like the world has ended, I've only had a couple things in my life happen. Interestingly enough, when I got divorced, um, the first time and the only time ever that I will be divorced, I felt like my world was ending. And in fact, there were times, and I'll be transparent in saying that I said, God, if you're going to take me now. The pain of it was so severe for me. And it wasn't just the loss of this person. It wasn't even the person that I was mourning. It was the idea I'd prayed for such a long time to be married. And it was so important to me and having a family that at my age at the time and having lost that, I thought that was pretty much the end. So having humility during that time and certainly the acceptance part took me a long time to come to the acceptance part. And I also feel like I was angry too at God. I felt like He had failed me in some way. Now, looking back now, of course, I'm the one that made the mistake because I stepped ahead of Him rather than waiting on the woman that I prayed for my whole life. I thought I knew better than God. I mean, it wasn't a conscious thing where I said, I know more than you, God, and I'm making this choice no matter what. It's only in retrospect that I see that my decision was based on me getting older and thinking that I was running out of chances, and I was
Yeah.
so wrong
Here.
about that. I was so wrong about that. God had a better plan for me in mind, and a person that was more suited to me, and I will be forever grateful for that and everything that I went through that prepared me to be the person I am today. So this is a poignant question. How does one show humility, respect, and acceptance when it feels like the world has ended? And I would say, for me, it is hanging on, and no matter what, trying to keep your eyes on what good can come out of difficult times and struggles.
Yeah.
Those things make it easier to have humility and know that if you're a believer, that God allows these things to happen to prune you and to make you stronger. And that we see him more in the storm than we do when everything's all, sunny and cheery and happy.
Yeah.
It's just the way that it seems to be. So that's my answer to that one. What about you, Jen? Would you like to go next on this one? How does one show humility, respect, and acceptance when it feels like the world has ended?
I was thinking about while you were talking about your ex and how you had a couple opportunities to really stick it to her, and you
Yeah.
had some friends that were encouraging you too, and you didn't.
Yeah, that's true.
You showed respect and even acceptance in her decision,
Yeah,
to be disloyal and moving on.
yeah,
And same with me. I pretty soon after I left my ex, I was praying for him. You and I prayed for him together, and
hmm
we still do.
yeah,
And I could have gone the road of just airing out our dirty laundry and telling everybody
sure,
all the stuff that was
sure.
going on.
Yeah,
But I didn't, and when I ran our store for almost 6 months after he left it, I think people were expecting me to just really gossip and lay into him, since he wasn't there. And like I said, I could have, but I chose not to. And
yeah,
I didn't want to play it that way. And not even, I have no idea, what he has said about me or told people about me, but
sure.
that doesn't matter. I'm not going to hinge, me having humility and showing respect based on what he does or doesn't do.
Yeah,
So that's my answer. Cause that was
okay.
really hard. That was,
Yeah,
and I honestly didn't feel like my world was ending. I felt like my hell was ending. It was like
right.
the complete opposite.
Perspective.
Yeah.
Perspective means everything.
Oh my gosh. But, there's been a handful of times that I have, not, gosh, more than a handful, where I've hit really hard stuff that like in that particular marriage, just coming to the end of myself
Right.
over and over because things weren't getting better and they just kept getting worse. And my heart was just breaking over and over and over again. And there just seemed to be no end to it. And humility in the sense of not getting angry at God, but knowing that even though I couldn't see what he was doing, I knew that I knew that I knew that he was doing something, that he was working behind the scenes. And I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know
Yeah,
what the outcome was going to be, but I trusted him.
yeah,
So it's even the acceptance of that, just being humble and kind of just laying at his feet and saying, "Do what you will. I don't even know what to do in this situation,
right,
and I'm not quite sure what you're pruning or what you're trying to teach me or what you're doing, but I know that you're doing something,
right.
and I'm just here. Like,
Wow,
do what you will." So,
wow, babe.
and look what
Wonderful.
he's done.
Yeah,
God is amazing. He's an amazing father, and I truly did not see any end to my hell.
right.
I was resigned to the fact that I was going to be in that forever and that it was going to end when I died or when he died. That was my life.
Yeah,
And God had different plans. So
you sure
I
did.
thank him for that.
I did too. Thank you for sharing that, Jen. I appreciate that. Before I ask Glenn, I'll just make one comment. I appreciate you mentioning that, Jen, because when I was answering the question, I'd completely forgotten about that. Before I say anything, this isn't me bragging. To me, this is just the providence of God and how He walked me through at the time, which was something that felt like my world was ending. But you mentioned that a lot of people were encouraging me to, because things were in my name, and they were encouraging me to shut the power off and shut the
Yeah.
cable off and just
Stick it to her.
stick it to her. And I got a lot of criticism because she was horrible at packing and moving, just horrible. And I have a story I'm not going to waste the time telling you, but just take my word for it. And I had a few things over there that I needed to get, and when I went to get the stuff, she was overwhelmed with all the things that she had to do to move out of the apartment that we shared. And I didn't need to do this, but I buckled down and helped her pack boxes and get it all cleaned out. And to this day, I have no idea why I did that, but I did. And a lot of people thought that was me being a pushover, and she didn't ask me to help her. It's just something that I did. But I remember thinking afterwards that no matter what she says about me after the fact, she will know that I left well, even though it was not my choice, that I didn't seek revenge and I didn't try to make things more difficult for her. I left with integrity and dignity as a man. And I suppose, regardless of how she views it, my ex, I'll always know that. And
God.
And God will know that too. And in that same vein, Stephanie put a comment and I wanted to share. When you have a choice to revenge someone who has done you wrong, choose to be humble and walk away. Thank you for that, Stephanie. I found that to be the better choice rather than doing the things that I could have done to make life difficult for her. Even though there were some people that thought that was the best choice. Okay, so thank you for your comment, Jen. Appreciate that. So for Glenn, how does one show humility, respect, and acceptance when it feels like the world has ended?
Yeah, this might be a longer answer than usual.
Okay. All right.
Oh, you can all cheer now.
Yeah, we sure can. More longer answers from Glenn.
Yeah, okay. Okay, first thing, I never had a problem with God being involved with Linda's choice. That was never an issue. So as you can see today, it's not an issue for me now either. So nothing changed. But this is a rhetorical question for me, written from the heart. Now, one of the topics that's coming up down the line is going to be closure.
Right.
The difficulty here is there was never closure. There was never disconnect.
Right.
All the years that went past, we were still connected the same. So how do you accept when you're not disconnected? I mean, we corresponded over the years. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it wasn't. But
right.
Because Cripps knows, he's seen all the stuff.
Right.
So this is I think one of the hardest things you can do is when you are not separated due to a lack of love, you are brought together by a lot of love, and that doesn't change. You mightn't be in the same physical space, but that doesn't mean in your head that you're somehow, disconnected. As I said, you're not, and it is incredibly difficult. And I think, from my point of view, I never got over it. That molecule in me never got over it. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think it's just being human. So it's a really tough one. I think the courage comes when you decide that you are either going to move on or you're going to sit in the same space. Now, in my case, I had to wait until I felt ready to move on, and I did. And eventually, in 2 years, I think it was, I got to meet Sandra, and we've been together for a very long time. So, yeah, this is tough. No closure,
Right.
No lack of love, but no disconnect. I'd like to hear how people out there are going to deal with this, because I can tell you it's very, very difficult for me.
Yeah.
Incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
I wonder how often that happens, where there's no lack of love and no disconnect.
Good question. I guess there's no way to answer that, but
Like, Glenn, you're the only person I know that's been through that.
Yeah, I had to comment the other day. Well, how are you not cheating? by being in contact with someone that you still have care deeply for.
Mhm.
And I think it's a pretty fair question.
Yeah.
But you have to, and next I can come up with is that you have to find the equilibrium that's required in order to do that.
Yeah.
Just because you're with someone else does not mean you should deny the love you have for another person. To my mind, that is ridiculous,
Right.
and it just smacks of the thought that what are we, a jealous place in this world, or are we an outwardly loving place? And I just
Right.
say, well, look, I've said to you many, many times, I will not deny if my love for your mum, and it's not going to happen. I don't care who knows it. Sandra
Right.
knows it. Sandra knows about this show.
Mm-hmm.
She can look at anything she likes. It's all open book, no
Mhm.
cheating. So you
Yeah.
can do it. You can do it for sure. So that's my answer. Any questions? You're more than welcome.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate you sharing your answer to that. Yeah, and I'll just say briefly, it was interesting to um, the first time that I met Glenn. Obviously, was when they were still together, and he came for a visit, and I didn't have much communication with him until she died, and there, to my knowledge, there really wasn't much at all. I just know that there was communication back and forth, and uh, however my mom acted at times about talking to Glenn or being with Glenn. Toward the end, when she had left my dad again, and there was some communication, I had said to her, I before I even knew about Glenn what I do now. So I didn't really know him honestly back then, but when she died, we bonded over um, mourning and grieving, and it changed my life. My relationship with Glenn has been very important to me. I have no issues saying that openly, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I wouldn't change what happened. It's I think even the fact that I'm with Jen, Glenn played a huge part in that because he was very helpful to her and realizing her worth and helping her realize that what she was going through was unacceptable and it was abuse. And it's difficult for Jen to see that while she was in the middle of it. She sees it all now, obviously, and
Yeah.
as many of us do in retrospect. Hindsight is 2020, and that's a saying because it's true. But I said all that to say that I knew that my mom cared dearly for Glenn, regardless of the situation at the time. Now she felt very strongly because Glenn was with someone, married to Sandra, that her chance. She had a chance, an opportunity to choose to move to Australia and be with Glenn, and she, as you heard in the letter, she chose not to do that. She felt like she had other things that she needed to do, and those are your choices. So we all have choices to make, and sometimes people on the outside will look at us and say, well, why didn't you choose that? So to me, it doesn't matter because I can't do anything about it. But now that I know who Glenn really is, at least in as much as I can, I feel like the better decision would have been to move to Australia, but we'll never know how that would have worked out because, she made a choice, and the choices that she made are still impacting people, as we said, her legacy, and things worked out the way that they did for a reason, right or wrong, whether we agree or not. That's the legacy that she left.
Yeah.
So very good. All right, next one. How does one find the courage to act it all out as one might when one feels gutted and inconsolable? Yeah, so the same situation that I talked about above. The world has ended. In that question, gutted and inconsolable. It wasn't even just that. At the time going through the divorce, I worked at a soul sucking job, and I remember how much that took out of me. And when I say soul sucking, it really felt like it was. It's a very difficult job to work in. And doing it at the time when going through divorce, I don't think I've ever felt so vulnerable in my life. Uh, I obviously did have the courage to act it all out in the end, but there were some times when I didn't feel I could. Uh, Felt very challenged at the time to be able to put one foot in front of the other. There were days, in fact, when I had that job where I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't even go in. I remember one time I went into work and just halfway through my shift, the room started to close in on me, and I'd never had a panic attack before, but in this moment, it was my first panic attack. Didn't even know what was happening to me really, and I went up and told the manager I can't stay here, and he kind of knew what was going on, so he allowed me to take off, and I went out to my vehicle and just cried and cried like I hadn't in a long time. And so I can relate to this feeling gutted and inconsolable. And also, coincidentally, at that time, because of my marriage, my mother and I were not speaking. We didn't speak very, very much for about 6 months before I went through the divorce. And I reached out to her, inconsolable and gutted, and told her what was happening. And to my amazement, I didn't have anywhere to go. I'd talked to friends to move in with them because I was going to be having to move out. And she said, "You just need to come home." Uh, I just was beside myself that she would even offer to do that because like I said, we weren't speaking, we weren't getting along at the time. But she was offering me a safe haven, when I had nowhere else to go, and it was a part of me that was always comforted by having that safe haven with my parents. There were certainly some ways that I didn't feel safe around them, but when it came time when the chips were down and I needed a place to go, that was good to have that, and so very meaningful to me. But anyway, how does one find the courage to act it all out as one might when one feels gutted and inconsolable? I would say that in my case, it was important to reach out to, if you have anybody to help you walk through it, anybody to talk to use those resources and to not try to do it alone,
Yeah.
to share your experience with somebody. And if you don't have anybody, find somebody. I mean, there are plenty of services out there that you can just have someone listen, and so I found that to be very important, and I would definitely suggest that to anyone. And I would also say that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is continuing forward, even though you might be fearful and you might have apprehension. I think a lot of people don't understand that. They think courage is the absence of fear, and that's not true at all.
No.
So no matter how you feel, continuing and not giving up and continuing to move forward one step after the other, I think is extremely important. Okay. How about you, Jen? How does one find the courage to act it all out as one might when one feels gutted and inconsolable?
I love your suggestion about reaching out to people, but there were a lot of times, when I think about being gutted and inconsolable, happened when I was in that marriage, and
Yeah.
I isolated, and not only that, part of the isolation was I was so desperate for my family to have a relationship with my ex that I couldn't share with them what
Right.
was going on because I felt like if I tell them anything about what's going on, they're going to hate him
Right.
and it'll completely burn a bridge of
Sure.
them ever, getting along or
Sure.
loving each other or getting close. Now, that wasn't the reality at that point, at any time.
Right.
He didn't want anything to do with them.
Right.
He worked all the time, and I think they got the drift that he just wasn't interested, and I
Sure.
kept telling them, oh, he has his own family history.
Yeah.
He doesn't trust people, which was
Sure.
true,
Yeah.
but there was a lot more going on with that. So the times of me being gutted and inconsolable, I had to do with God. He was the only one that knew every little thing that was happening,
Right.
every single day,
Yeah.
and how it was just ripping and shredding my heart all the time. Like, just was awful. But I'm grateful to say now
Yeah.
that I have you, this amazing husband who
Aw.
will drop anything and everything to open your arms to me, and me be able to crawl into your arms and be gutted and inconsolable, and that you are supportive, and you don't try to rush me through crying. You validate my tears and
Mm.
upset feelings and emotions, and you're just wonderful. And
Mm.
I hope and pray everybody can experience the type of love you showed me.
Aw.
I think I always knew that it existed, but then at the same time I was like, wow, is this like some kind of Disney fairy tale fantasy? Like, can this really exist? I knew that I had and I'm not trying to boast here, I've known that I've always had the capability of loving someone unconditionally, and being supportive and being validating, and all those things. I just had never had it reciprocated,
Right.
or even been with someone who really wanted that. So I had all this stuff to give, and had
Sure.
someone who was like a prickly pear, and just like, get
Right.
away from me. Um, so it was just kind of stagnant for a while there, but yeah, so with you, I have that. I'm able to act out. I've thrown dishes around you,
Yeah.
like, from being really angry, not at you, but just at
No.
past stuff.
Yeah.
And I've been able to just share anything and everything with you, and it's been wonderful. And so I just pray that everybody listening could be able to experience that.
Aw.
And God is like that. God is always here for us. He's always listening, and he can feel our pain. He's been through any pain that we can experience. But to be able to have human arms to wrap around you, and accept you in a state of being gutted and inconsolable, it
Mhm.
is one of the most healing things I
I
think a
would
human
agree.
being can experience.
I completely
So
agree.
that's what I'll say.
Thank you, Jen. Appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
All right, Glenn, you're up on this one. So, how does one find the courage to act it all out as one might when one feels gutted and inconsolable? Inconsolable.
Well, I think you've got to, otherwise you're not going to eat much. That's for
Yeah,
sure. I think I
definitely not.
lost about 5 kilos in a week.
Right.
10 or 12 pounds in your language. Like,
Okay.
I think there's another element to this one. I think once you get to the past the inconsolable part, where you've got to just say, well, you got to get it together. Yeah. Once you come to that, you've just got to get it together,
Yeah.
and look at this in perspective. The hardest thing I think to do is when you've had a 100% giving relationship on both sides. It's a very intense relationship, very connected. You've got to be the difficulty is not to let that define you for what comes next.
Right.
Because if you do, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's a really difficult thing to deal with. That was why, from myself, until I had come to I went through this process in my head, and I did do therapy, but that wasn't until later. So it's not,
Right.
I didn't do it right after this. So
Sure.
to the point where it took me quite a while to say, well, look, I just can't do this. I have to basically put up a blank, to say what has
Right.
gone before is what has gone before. Now I have to look at everything that's coming as a new experience, and don't try to compare one experience with the other. Once I was able to do that, I was away, up and running, not a problem.
There
So
you go.
yeah, yep.
So it's like if you move ahead into the future with other relationships, and you're always trying to frame them into the frame of the past.
Sure.
Well,
You're just setting yourself up.
yeah.
Yeah.
How easy would it be if you've had experiences in your life with one person and then you have experience with another person and you say, oh, gee, that wasn't as good as the previous? You can't do that. This is
Right.
not how you cannot do this. You can't compare. It's not fair for a start. And if you do not do that, you're never going to have another relationship that's going to be of value to you because you're always going to be looking back.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And
Right.
thankfully I didn't ever do it. So, but I know lots of people who have, and they've said to me years later, oh, I wish it was what I had before, but that doesn't work.
Right.
What before is gone.
This is
Embrace
brand
what you
new.
exactly. Embrace what you had then, but don't
Yeah.
let it be what you are now. So yeah, I think that's a real key, and I think there's a lot of people out here probably can relate to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Sure. Thanks.
Yes. So one more thing, Glenn, do you feel like your relationship with my mother influenced you to seek counseling, or do you think you would have gone that route regardless?
Did we lose him?
I don't know.
Maybe.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's a good question though.
oh, well, thank you.
Sorry that my laptop was off. I'm happy to answer. I used to think therapist was a joke,
Right.
total waste of space. I think I
Sure.
said that to you before.
Mm-hmm.
What opened
Sure.
eyes was when I used to sit in her office in Charlotte, and I would see pregnant crack addicts coming in,
Hmm.
alcoholics, abusers,
Yeah.
wife bashers.
Yeah.
And I thought, and then Linda and I we wouldn't talk we wouldn't know who these people are, but we would talk the dynamics of these cases because I was fascinated by human behavior.
Right.
And it was from that point that I saw, hey, this is not stupid. This has value. If you
Yeah.
find the right person,
Yeah.
you've got to get on the wavelength. Once you get on the wavelength with a person, with a therapist, and that relationship will flourish. If you don't, it's not going to work. So yes,
Yeah,
it
find
did
anyone.
influence me. It did influence me, but I had a similar thing to Jen. I was carrying baggage about parents and stuff. But as Jen knows, it's an evolutionary process. You don't even realize this stuff is there until you go down the line. It
That's
all
true.
comes out. Yeah, so. Yeah, so that's. Am I still on? I just thought something happened on the laptop. I might have gone.
I can still hear you.
Oh, okay, sure. Maybe it's Jen that's. She's back. Okay, I just saw the laptop click.
Sorry
So
about that,
yeah,
guys.
That's okay.
it was a bit. It was a big influence. Yeah, it was. It was, but it took a while to sink in.
I get it. Yeah. Well, that was a great answer. Thank you for
And I
sharing.
missed it. What did he say?
Which bit, Jen?
Oh, it cut out when you said I had the same issue with Jen, the parent stuff, and then it cut out.
Yeah, but it didn't come out until down the line. I didn't go to therapy until I actually got I got what I needed to go to therapy for. In other words, and it wasn't there when I split from your mum.
Yeah.
It took another, I don't know, would it be another, probably about 18 months down the line before I went to therapy. And it was pretty emotional. It's really emotional stuff. You think you're big and strong, but when it comes to the crunch, I was a freaking wimp. I lost it every week.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Nothing's changed.
It takes some courage to do that. There's a lot of people that are not willing to put themselves into that scenario. I tell Jen this all the time. There are people out there that are just not willing. It's too painful to even look at themselves. So I think it's more painful to try to exist without introspection, without looking at yourself and finding out why it is you make the choices that you make, good or bad. You know, why do you do that? I just know that there's, especially men, unfortunately, it seems to be more difficult for men to make that choice to get help, get counseling, or at least to take a look. Find out why you tick. If you're struggling with anything, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say, I need someone to listen to me and tell me why I'm doing this. Why am I making these choices? It just sometimes it's the best way to go. There's nothing wrong with telling someone, hey, I can't go through this by myself. And I'm glad that you did seek help, because I didn't, like I said, I didn't really know you before, but I feel like we've gotten to know each other over the past 3 years, and I just I can see what my mom loved about you. Let me just say that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. Self-love.
Okay. The next part is not a question. It's more of a statement, but I'm going to go ahead and read it again. The truth of it is, you have to, in relation to the 2 questions above, about how do you have the courage to act it all out. So the truth of it is, you have to, or you wither. Easy to say, harder to do. It's that choice word again. Think of it this way: the legacy of each person in this equation, each family, children, friends, etc., could have been different. Not better, not worse, just different. Our choices are far-reaching.
Yes.
So that's not really a question, but I do want to comment on that. Our choices, that last statement is so true. Our choices don't just affect us. It's easy to look at things in your life and say, well, this choice I made is not hurting anyone. The thing is, how do you know? How do you know your choices aren't hurting anyone? I say, if you have any relationships whatsoever, your choices do affect those people around you. They certainly affect people that care about you. So I think that statement is, our choices are far-reaching, and they, as we've seen with Linda's letter, they can reach others either positively or negatively, even when we're gone. So in the idea of legacy, thinking about how our legacy is going to affect others is extremely important. So does anyone want to make a comment on that before we move forward? I mean, it's okay if you don't, but no,
I'm good.
Okay. What you have, what Jen read is a microcosm of life, a nanosecond of time, containing many of those things we're trying to present on TSL. That is very true. Again, my mother's influence on me to do introspection. She was very influential. That's why I asked Glenn that question, because she did it first. She went on the road less traveled first, and going to counseling and getting help for herself, and realizing that she wanted to be better. She wanted to struggle less with emotional issues and things like that. And so when she did that, she invited me along for the ride in many respects. And I went. I did not see myself. The first meetings that she went to were codependency related. And I didn't consider myself a codependent, but when I went to the meetings, I learned so much about people. And that was where I first thought about being a counselor. And my mother was very supportive of that. She said, "You've been a counselor your whole life. You are a great listener, and you've always counseled people and have advice for your friends, and it's something that's important to you." I still, to this day, am considering doing that. I actually had planned on doing that, but when I graduated back in 2007, it was a recession. So my plan to go back to get my master's in counseling. Of course, nowadays you can just slap the word life coach on yourself, and I'm a life coach. Okay, what does
You'd
that
be a
mean?
great life coach.
I would. I just think I would feel better about actually having a degree,
Yeah.
other than just, I do have a psychology degree, but it's not a master's. So anyway, the next part is not that someone has the courage to use these words, a legacy on its own. It's all there. All it takes is to open one's eyes. All right. So the following are all that Glenn went through and picked out the words out of this 5-page document from my mother. And here they are: clarity, soulmate, frustration, sadness, depression, truth, experience, desire, practice, hard, good, God, privileged, precious, gift, gratitude, blessed, loving, connected, mistakes, love, friends, failed, good, determination, authentic, one of my favorites, lies, connection, calling, wisdom, vision, deserve, cycles, see, counts, important, give, comfort, peace, honored, hope, needed, fortunate, grateful. That's an important one. Willing, another one. Accept, desperate, information, decisions, faith, peace, incredible, dramatically, intuition, relationship, listen, encouraging, enjoy, committed, holiness, sacrament, marriage, married, unanswerable, feeling, RLT, don't know what that means, given.
Road less traveled.
Oh, road less traveled, gotcha. Good one, Jen. Given, expected, joy, choice, compare, process. She used that word all the time. Well, it's a process. She'd tell me. It started to get a little irritating. Well, I'd complain about something and she'd say, well, it's all a process. She was right, though. Comfort, understanding, fantasies, fairy tales. Next, wonderful, sadness, grief, deeply, feel, compromise, intimacy, logical, reality, happiness, satisfaction, miracle, difficult, neediness, anticipation, embrace. Unfortunately, having clarity does not make whatever comes next easy. I'll read that again. Unfortunately, having clarity does not make whatever comes next easy. I'd say that's true for many things. And there it is. Those words could have made a million stories, but they made this one. Comments and questions invited. It's all an open book. Then we have questions for each of you, which we went through. They will put on screen during the broadcast. Okay. Meantime, much has been spoken about the connections between believers and non-believers. I wonder how each person here defines what is a soulmate. All right, that was the next one. Been spoken about the connection between believers and non-believers. I wonder how each person here defines what is a soulmate. I love this question. I've actually, because of my mother, I've read more than one book about soulmate, being a soulmate, what a soulmate is. Some of them were a little bit new agey, but I still learned from them anyway. It's an interesting thing about my mother. She had a wealth of information being a counselor, and I think that's necessary. A lot of people would say, well, you just need to read, the Bible and quote unquote Christian books in order to be a counselor. You shouldn't use anything else.
Disagree.
I would definitely disagree. So a lot of people have theories about the soulmate thing. Some people believe in it, some people don't. I believe that God makes people that match. So to word use soulmate, for me, that works out just fine. Do I believe that God made Jen for me? Absolutely, I do. So I don't say, hey, soulmate to her, but I believe she is. I believe God made me specifically to fit her. And I believe that God made her specifically to fit me. I agree with what Glenn says. Each person, I guess we're not to that part yet. To think that there's more than one soulmate, I think the answer to that would be yes. You could have more than one person that matches you, but in my mind, God forbid, if something were to happen, Jen, I would be done. Meaning, I would not seek out another relationship. I feel like the timing of meeting her was perfect for me, and I can't do any better than who Jen is. I really can't. And I know that's sappy, but I know that this is it. And again, if she were to precede me across the river, again, God forbid, that I would just wait. I would wait until I followed, and then we would be together in eternity. There'd be no need for me to be with someone else. So she is my soulmate, and I don't need another one. But I do believe you can have more than one. It's just my opinion, but I think that my mother and Glenn were soulmates. But he has another soul. Well, he can speak for himself, but I believe there's more than one in his case. So that tells me that there can be more than one in each case. So for me, the definition of soulmate is, it's defined by a person who fits you. They're made to fit you. You just seem to connect and match in a way that you can't match with other people.
Puzzle piece.
Puzzle piece. That's a great one. What about you, Jen? How do you define what is a soulmate?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I tend to kind of cringe when I hear soulmate.
Okay.
I think it's because, in my experience, it's overused. I think did he leave? I heard the little doodle.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm back.
I think it's overused maybe by to manipulate.
Sure.
And that's what makes me cringe.
Oh,
And
I
think,
get you.
yeah, and I think there are times people use it and they're not being realistic. They're not really looking at, are they a match? It's just this fluffy word to throw around.
Yeah.
But I do believe that they do exist, and I've never necessarily liked that title to it. But
Right.
I like how you said, I didn't really come up with my own, but how you said a match.
Yeah.
Where two people fit, and it's not so much them completing each other, because I hate that idea. I love the idea of people, being as whole as they can be, coming together.
I would agree.
Yeah. So, yeah, like with you and I, it's effortless.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to brag. I really am not.
No.
I did not know that this could exist. I just didn't.
Right.
I had no concept, no earthly idea.
Yeah.
And from my experience before, it was just like an uphill battle every day.
Yeah.
It just was painful and hard and grueling. And I honestly thought at that time, I was like, well, this is what marriage is.
Right.
This is how it is. And no one warned me.
No one told you. No one warned you ahead of time.
Yeah, that's how I feel about kids sometimes, where you have those friends that are kind of elbowing you like, hey, when are you guys gonna have kids? And I feel like this could be just a comical, representation, but where they're like in their head, they're like, I can't wait till you realize how crappy it could be, the lack of sleep and the peeing on your face while you're changing diapers and all that stuff. No, trust me, I know that it's a beautiful, miraculous thing, but yeah, I thought it was like that. I'm like, what the heck? Like nobody warned me. And that's just a whole other story, because when I tried to talk to my mom about how hard things were, I got really confused because even though I wasn't telling her the tip, more than the tip of the iceberg with what was going on, she, I think, thought I just had my head in the clouds and had been influenced by Disney, thinking that marriage was going to be perfect or something. And she just didn't realize what was going on. So I felt like, okay, this is normal.
Yeah.
So soulmates, yeah, I do believe there is a match for you. I really do. And having known Glenn, and I've known a couple other people, like acquaintance wise, that have, found love after having a death of a spouse.
Right.
But haven't known the fullness of their story. But having known Glenn and having met Sandra and talked with her and reading Linda's letters, I'm amazed that, I mean, I'm amazed and I'm not. I think our world is amazing. I think human beings are amazing. It doesn't surprise me that somebody can have two soulmates or, two people that match you so perfectly.
Yeah.
And not perfect people, just a perfect match in the sense of who you are. But anyway, okay, that's my
No,
answer.
absolutely. That last point that you said, I think that's so true. They're not perfect people. They're perfect for you.
Yeah.
I think that's important. True for me as well.
Mhm.
I am not a perfect person, but I feel like I am perfect for you.
I would agree.
Distinctly for you. The parts of my puzzle fit the parts of your puzzle. That's
Mhm.
wonderful. All right, you're up, Glenn. What is a soulmate, my friend? How do you define what is a soulmate?
Yeah, whatever you think it is, whatever you want it to be. It's no definition, but if I had to say what it feels to me, it's a wavelength.
Yeah.
You're just on song, or
Yes. Like a
it's
frequency, it just sings together.
you just it's a way of knowing that you can't explain. It might sound new agey,
Mm-hmm.
but that's how it is. It's like Jed said, when you are connected with that person, it is just like it. Everything is effortless. It's just
Right.
not a hassle. It just
Right.
flows. It finds its own equilibrium, and you have to do nothing about it. You don't have to, just sit there and do a whole lot of stuff, do anything to keep the person there.
Mhm.
Right.
The person stays because they want to.
Yes.
They're the huge difference.
Yeah.
So you're not needy. I don't think you can be soulmates and needy at the same time.
Right.
No.
What do you
That
think?
I don't think so because it's sort of revolved around fear.
Right.
I think it's hard for you to make music together with someone when there's fear.
Mm-hmm. My only caveat to that would be that's not to say that within the relationship that you're never going to need the other person, that you're not going to
Yeah.
go through a hard time that you're struggling with, and the other person just stands there. Your quote unquote soulmate just stands there and says, "Oh, you're on your own."
Oh,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
way. But
Yeah.
that's way different from someone's saying, "Well, I can't let you go." That
Right.
need is when you present, I'm not letting you go.
Right.
I'm saying soulmate is when you set them free
Right. I
Yeah.
got you.
and they come back of their own volition. They
Yeah.
Yeah.
make the decision.
Yeah.
Because who
That's
wants to
why
be
it
with somebody
flows.
that doesn't want to be with you? You want to be with people that want to be with you.
Yes.
That's where
Yeah.
I think the people misconstrue what love is. They think you don't let them go is love, but the reality is, I see it, and everyone's got their own opinion. Love is about when you say you're free.
Yeah.
You don't own people, and how can ownership? When the concept of ownership enters the equation, how can those people be soulmates?
Yeah.
Oh
So
no.
Yeah. Or how does that equate to love?
it doesn't.
No.
Yeah. If you've got to force someone to stay with you, that to me is not it's not love in any way.
Mm-mm.
Um, if the person decides to be there, they can leave at any time. Meaning, that if that's what they really decided to do, that the person loves them so much that they wouldn't stop them from being happy if they were unhappy. that sounds more like a realistic depiction of love rather than you're clinging so tightly to someone so desperate that they stay. Yeah, that's not what I feel like it is. I don't own Jen. She's not a possession of mine. If and this would kill me, but if she was unhappy and wanted to leave, I would be beside myself with grief. But I would have to allow her to make her own decisions and decide what's best for her. Ultimately, you can't hold on to someone that doesn't want to be with you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Liam's made a comment. Would you like to read it, or you want me to?
You can if you'd like.
Sure, it's right here. I think two people are too frightened to leave a relationship. And I honestly believe it's absolutely a sweet thing for someone to say that they depend on their significant other.
Interesting.
Well,
wait, was that two statements or one?
No, it's one. Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, one more time.
Yeah, sure. I think two people are too frightened to leave a relationship. And I honestly believe it's absolutely a sweet thing for someone to say that they depend on their significant other. I'll just add one point. Well, Sandra's stroked out. I'm her carer. She depends on me in that sense. But that's nothing to do with the relationship. The relationship is still based on freedom.
Right.
Not based on dependence.
Right.
I don't depend on Sandra to make me who I am, and neither does she me. She's still free to be the person she is, even within the context that in the physical world, we care for each other, or I care for her more than she cares for me. That's just how it is. That's life.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thanks.
Exactly. So to me, what it's saying is, as I said earlier, it doesn't mean that you don't have times when you need the other person to walk through a difficult time with you. Just as Glenn's example, he's helping Sandra through a very difficult period of time, but she's free within the relationship. It's not bondage for her emotionally and spiritually. So there's a freedom involved there. And frankly, that's the way it should be. I think Jen has said recently, I forget in what context it was, but she was saying that the movie Jerry Maguire, that line,
that movie.
You hate. Well, I love the movie. That
it's
part.
the line. It's that line.
It's the line. You complete me. And I remember when I saw it at the time, I thought, oh, how sweet. But now,
same here.
I see it differently. You complete me. So it's looking to another person to fill your empty spaces, and it's just not good. What kind of power is that giving to someone if you're trying to rely on them to fill your empty spaces? It's like, what if they don't? What if they're having a tough time?
And they usually can't.
Right.
I don't think they ever can, actually. I think that's just setting both people up for destruction.
Right.
Gosh.
I would agree.
I'm sorry, when you said you complete me, I heard Ross Geller in my head. You complete me, kitchen matey. Sorry, I had to share that. I'm going to run to the bathroom while you all talk.
Sure.
Quick.
Yeah, hey, Cripps, don't forget we got 5 quick questions too. You overstepped. No worries. We can go back.
My apologies. Can you direct me to what part?
I can I can put it up on the screen if that helps.
Sure.
If we're past that bit, I think we are we not? You tell me.
Well, we're almost to the end. So
okay, so I'll backtrack for you, and I shall. Here's the first question. If you remember, there's 5 questions. I think there's 5, 4 or 5. Yeah, it's 5, but they're all short.
Okay.
Would you like me to read it if you can't see it, or you got it?
There, it just came up.
Oh, okay, sure. Delay.
So I don't have these in the write-up.
No, that's what I said. They'll be put on the screen.
Oh, okay. I understand. So that's where I made an error. I was going through the write-up. So my apologies.
All good.
Okay. Yeah. So you'll have to read them then,
Sure.
over top of the top of the question is it has the live button, so I can't even see the first part of it.
Okay, sure. Jen's back. Okay. How do you perceive the influence of belief, in inverted commas, plays out in life and will play out in your legacy? How do you perceive the influence of belief plays out in your life and will play out in your legacy?
Oh, what a great question. I'll answer first. But for me, belief influences everything, and yes, very much so in my belief in God and things like that. I don't mean to discount that at all. But even the belief in myself, the believing what a person believes about themselves becomes true regardless of whether it really is or not. In other words, if I believe I'm a piece of crap, it doesn't matter if I am or not. That belief defines me in my own mind, and I will live a life based on that, based on my own belief. I
Yeah.
have in the past believed things that other people told me, and they were not true. The things that they said were not true. I've allowed other people to define me and tell me what I should believe about myself, and that has caused a lot of problems for me. So it's important in the area of belief to believe the right things about you. Find out. Uh, don't listen to what other people tell you. Find out for yourself what you believe. And yes, that to me that includes even a spiritual belief or belief in the Bible. I grew up in a Christian home, and I'm always going to be grateful for that influence and memorizing scripture and going to Sunday school and going to church. But when I became a man, I had to look at things myself and decide for myself, not just believe because my parents and my grandparents and uncles and aunts and cousins or whatever the case may be, because they believed. Because in my mind, we don't stand in front of our family. At the end of our life, we stand before God. So it's important that my belief is not based on what other people believe, but based on what I believe. So how belief plays out in my life will play out in my legacy. Again, it's what I believe about myself shapes the way that my life goes. I hope that it plays out in my legacy, as I answered earlier about the way I treat people. The way I treat people very much comes out of what I believe about myself and believe about others. I believe that people deserve to be treated kindly, and that we live in a broken, fallen world where a lot of people are walked all over and they're abused constantly. And bureaucracy is a horrible thing that allows people to slip through the cracks all the time, and the rich people are allowed to rule things while everyone else has to struggle for what little they have. So my legacy would be to treat people with love, dignity, kindness, and respect. And my belief shapes that for me. That's my answer to that. What about you, Jen? You want to answer that one?
Say the question again.
Sure. How do you perceive the influence of belief, in quotations, plays out in life and will play out in your legacy?
I have no idea how to answer this question. I think my brain's getting tired.
I'm sure you've had a long weekend.
Yeah, it's been a rough weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass. I'm so sorry. Don't mean to disappoint, guys.
No, you're fine. You're fine. All right, Glenn, you're up on this one. How do you perceive the influence of belief plays out in life and will play out in your legacy?
Yeah, well, I can only try to answer that as I would for a believer, but it's a tough
Sure.
one because I can look at authentic people who act out their belief and say, look, this is a wonderful impact upon your legacy. But I can look at some believers who are a-holes and say, this is going to be your legacy, But where the relevance of how do you conjoin being how you are in that situation and being a believer, because they don't seem to match. So it's all weird. It's all weird.
Ah.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
if someone plays out as a believer, let's look at Linda. You what you read there, you can see. I think it's plain to see that not only did she believe, she acted out her belief in the way that she made her choices, the way she lived her life. But other people, that's her legacy. But then look at it from the point of view of a person who doesn't do that. Do you think they're going to ask? Someone's going to ask at the end of the day, were you a believer? No. All they're going to see is that you were an a-hole, and you treated people shabbily, and this is who you were, and you're not a very nice person. They don't care what you believe. They see what's in front of them.
Sure.
Yeah, your actions.
Sure.
Yep. Thanks.
I will add to that frankly, I don't like the term Christian. I prefer the word believer to Christian, because the word has been usurped. A lot of people call themselves Christian, and just as Glenn's saying, they live a life that people look at and say that you're an a-hole. Absolutely. In America, at least, I would say more than 52% of people would claim to be a Christian. And it certainly doesn't show up in the way they live their life. And one last thing, that there are quote unquote Christian groups out there that are very well known for spewing hate and anger toward different groups, which is not the way Jesus lived, and it certainly isn't befitting, in my opinion, someone that is commanded to love others and treat them with kindness. It is not necessarily agreeing with a person's lifestyle, but in no way are we to treat people with hatred. So I think Glenn's point is a good one. Okay, let's move on to the next one, Glenn, if you don't mind. Next question.
Sure. Which kind of legacy is more important to you? What you did in your life, or how you were towards others?
How you were toward others.
Oh, okay. Yes. You go first, Jen.
Your turn, Jen.
Yeah. Well, I think they're kind of connected, because what you did in your life, if what you did was being kind toward others, then right on.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. Like, what you did, when people ask, what do you do? Like jobs and careers and dreams. No, I think treating people with kindness and love far outweighs what somebody does.
Right.
It drives me absolutely bonkers that the worth of a person in our society, at least here in America, even among Christians, sometimes it's all about, what do you do? Do you have a full-time job? Do you have benefits? 401k? And it's like, that's not the top tier of what matters. Yes, it's important.
Sure.
But relationships and how you treat people is the most important thing to me, at least. And it drives me nuts when it's not for other people. But that's them. That's they're allowed to be who they are, and I've got to let Kendra be Kendra. So that's my answer.
Great. Thank you, Jen. It's going to be a copy of what Jen said. I definitely would much prefer the way I am toward others as being my legacy rather than what I did. And just for an example, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, of the broadcast, there are people out there that seem to want to leave a legacy of, it's the idea of he who dies with the most toys wins. The idea that the more beautiful cars you have and the bigger mansion and things like that, that's a legacy to leave. And the thing is, you can't spend your money when you're dead. I mean, you can leave it, I guess.
Agreed.
Leave it for your kids and stuff, but all that means nothing. It's meaningless. So I can hear the cat.
Coco.
Coco's here and he's demanding.
He wants to answer the questions.
I asked him
His-
last night. Was he a narcissist? He said when I have to be.
yeah. His legacy is to lay down and get fed and end up in the cupboard, on top of
and have games.
Yeah. So for me, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not impressed with someone that has made millions and millions of dollars and done all this stuff where the world will. They seem to be preoccupied with how much money a person has and, oh, he's a billionaire and all that. Would I like to be a billionaire? Yes. Yeah, sure. I mean, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want the ability to be able to help others with the drop of a hat, where you wouldn't even think twice about seeing all the single mothers that are struggling out there, lost their husband for various reasons, and that are not being provided for in the way that they're having to work 2 or 3 jobs to take care of a kid, or kids, plural. There's plenty of hurting people out there, plenty of people that struggle. And my attitude has definitely changed. When I was a younger person, it's not that I was callous, but I saw a lot of people taking advantage of the systems that are in place and on welfare and things like that. And they got mag wheels for their cars. And that does happen. But as I've gotten older and more wise, I've learned that that's really not everyone. Some people really need help. And so if I were blessed in that way, I would do everything I could to die without the money, to spend it. I mean, sure, would I get a couple things for myself? Sure. But the more important thing would be to leave this world empty, having emptied all of it out in order to help others. That really is my heart's attitude. All right, I think I answered the question. So towards others, my legacy would be more important how I treat others. How about you, Glenn?
Easy one. When you went to your mum's memorial service, how many people spoke about what she did, and how many people asked you whether she was worth $1 or $1 billion?
Yeah, not a single person. They talked about her influence in their lives. We literally, there was a line of people waiting. We opened it up so if anyone wanted to say any words, and they were lined up at the front of going down the side by the pews, lined up to get a chance to go up and say something about my mother. And it wasn't just immediate family. There were some people there that I had never met before. So it was amazing the amount of people that poured in to help. So there you go.
Yep.
All right. Next one, please.
Oh,
Yep.
was Glenn going to answer? Oh, he did answer.
Oh, I did answer. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, we're moving on. If someone declares categorically what is best for them, do you consider it fair, inverted commas, to pursue that person? If someone declares categorically what is best for them, do you consider it fair to pursue that person?
No, not at all. And why would a person want to? Again, let me use Jen for an example. At the beginning of our relationship, I was very aware that she may have needed time between the abusive relationship she was in and being in a relationship with me. And I very much already had strong feelings for her. But I had to make it very clear to her that I understood that if she needed time, I mean, the categorically across the board, the advice for someone that has been through a relationship is like that, to not jump into a new one quickly, to take some time on your own and grow and heal and change. And Jen had that option, and I made it clear that was the option. If she had said to me, Cripps, I think you're a great guy, blah, blah, blah. Of course, she would have to say that. You're a great guy, but I am not ready for a relationship. And she made it clear to me, as the question says, she declares categorically what is best for her. In this case, best for her to be alone and not to pursue a relationship with me. What would I do then? Who would I be if I then kept pursuing her?
It would show a lack of respect, that's for sure.
Yes, it would show a lack of respect, and that I didn't listen, and her needs mean nothing to me. Conversely, if I didn't bother her and allowed her to have the time that she needed, and then once the time that she needed is done, if she came to a decision to try it out, allowed me to pursue, and she pursue me for a relationship, then I can sit back and relax and be satisfied that I respected her declaration, and I respected her as a person, and I allowed her to do what she needed to do and follow the decision that she made. I think that's the best I can do as far as the example. No, it's not fair to pursue that person if they make it clear that they're doing what's best for them. Jen?
I would agree. I think there are some people out there that are attracted to people that I don't want to say don't want them. That sounds really harsh.
Hard to get.
Yes, yeah, and maybe that might stem to childhood stuff where they've dealt a lot with abandonment, and there's something in that for them, the chase or pursuing people that aren't pursuing them,
Sure.
kind of a situation.
Sure.
But no, I don't think it's healthy for the person they're pursuing, and maybe trying to strong arm. And I don't think it's healthy for the person doing the chasing either, because you
Right.
want to definitely be with someone who wants to be with you.
Yeah.
But I tell you, there are some people out there that play hard to get. They want to be with the person, and then they'll play hard to get because they like being chased.
Right.
So it could go both ways. But no, I think it's good to respect where someone's at and know that their needs are respected. They're showing respect by letting someone make that decision for themselves and respect it.
That's a great point, Jen. And I just have to share this. I really have no other choice. But when my ex was leaving me, one of the statements that she made was, I want to be chased, but I don't want to be caught. So she said that from a perspective of someone that was already married. So she said, I want to be chased, but I don't want to be caught. Now that I think about that in terms of what we're asking, I think that it makes so much more sense. She did not want to be caught. In other words, she enjoyed the chase, the pursuit, which already had happened. So once the pursuit was over, there was nothing in it for her.
Yeah.
Because all she wanted was to be pursued. So, she probably enjoyed dating several different people. And then once that was over, once the pursuit was done and she was quote unquote caught, then that's when she would have to cut and run.
Or lose interest.
Lose interest, yeah. That's generally what I'm saying too. Okay. What about you, Glenn?
Not fair, but I've got an add-on because this is. I'll just refer back to your mum.
Mhm.
Okay, never pursuit from a relationship perspective happened again, ever, because she made her choice. That was respected. But you think of it when there's no lack of love and people are still connected and underneath they do communicate. The difficulty is, where's the status quo?
Yeah.
How do you find equilibrium in a situation like that? So although there's not actually pursuit, there can still be communication. It's not like you're cutting them off at the knees.
Right.
That's for sure. So yes, pursuit and contact are not necessarily the same thing.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
That's a fair point.
Thanks.
That's a fair point. Okay, we got through that one. What are there? Two more?
Yep.
Okay, let's do the next one.
Okay, Linda says, we all don't get to have it all. Sorry, let me start that again, please. Linda says, we all don't get to have it all, even though I think we are all meant to desire it and go for it, inverted commas. Do you believe a go for attitude impacts our life and legacy?
Wow. There's a lot there. I think that we all have desire to have things that we'll never have. In her story, she talked about living in northern Michigan, and I mentioned that I felt very bad that she was never able to do that. It is something that she and I talked about quite often, and I wanted it for her. I wanted her, and she didn't want to leave her children, and I would say, well, Mom, so, we come to Michigan at that time at least twice a year, once at Christmas and once during the summer. So yes, it would be far away, but I'd even said if she ended up moving to Michigan, I would probably move there too, because I love Michigan. I don't mind the cold and the ice and the cloudy days and all that. Doesn't make a difference to me. I love that particular state. But she never got a chance to do that. It doesn't mean the desire wasn't there. So how that affects us, the go for it. I think in her life, she went for some of the things that she wanted, and some of the things she mentioned in the letter, I think she absolutely achieved. But a lot of those things, maybe it was because she didn't live long enough to pursue the rest of them. But looking at her life, I wish she had gone for more of that. But the choices she made, again, judging by her memorial and the amount of people that showed up, she affected a lot of people, and so it was enough. And that's my judgment looking at her. For her, I think that what she accomplished was enough. So her lack, in some ways, of having that go for it attitude seemed to suit her needs just fine. For me, there are many things that in the past that I want to go for, and in many ways, I'm glad that I didn't do that. One of the things was being an actor and going to Hollywood and giving it a shot. And I guess there's a part of me that will always regret not trying that. But I have had a lot of joy by doing local plays and writing plays and seeing them on stage and directing and things like that. So it's not like there's been nothing in the area of performing and doing theater and things like that. But I wouldn't say that I have the go for it attitude in most things. I wish I did. I think my sister is way more of a go for it person. She seems to have set out to do everything that she wants to do. She wanted to have a family. She has a family, and it's important to her. So I think that's for all of us to go for what we can get and be okay with whatever our decisions are. That's my answer to that.
That's a good answer.
Thank you, Jen. What about you?
Question again, please, sir.
Linda says we all don't get to have it all. No, I think we are all. Sorry, I think we all are meant to desire it and go for it. Do you believe a go for it attitude impacts our life and legacy?
Oh yeah. There's been some spaces in my life where I have gone for it, and a lot of others where I haven't. There's regret there. There's still time, as far as I know, considering today, because we're not promised tomorrow. But when it comes to valuing relationship over anything else, I am content.
Oh.
I I have a handful of people around me that are safe and I can trust and be myself and be authentic and open and have relationships with those people. And I'm working on a couple more, and that's what's most important to me. So if I died tomorrow, I would be more than happy, considering that. So I think leaving a legacy of valuing relationships over anything else is the best kind of legacy to leave. It just leaves a legacy of letting people know that they're seen, they're heard, they're important, they're worth something, and being a person that sees people and appreciates and loves relationship and wants and desires relationship with people, I think is very impactful. And that's just the kind of legacy that I'd like to leave.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, guys.
What about you, Glenn?
Yeah, I've had this chat with my kids in not in quite the same terms, but effectively meaning the same things. And we sort of concluded or decided, whatever, that one is about risk taking and one is about fear. So if you don't go, it's the fear of stuffing it up. If you take the risk, what we did with the kids was said, hey, if you take the risk, really it doesn't matter how it ends up. Because I've had them say to me, oh, Dad, you just did that and you're an effing idiot. Why did you do that? I said, because I just had to go for it. Like it's the answer. Sometimes you've got to do it, regardless. If you were thinking every decision you make is going to be about what is the outcome, you'll never do anything. Right. You just got to do it and let it unfold. And now the kids, I notice, are actually tending to do that more. And the fact that they might stuff it up doesn't seem to matter so much, because every time they do that, that's another experience that they put under their belt. So it's defining them to say, hey, it's okay. It's okay to take the risk. It's okay to not get what you might necessarily desire. But the fact is you went for it is very affirming, if you like. But I think it has a major impact on legacy, because that's what they'll demonstrate to their kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, in fact, some of the things you've told me that you've done, that it gives me anxiety just thinking about it, like planning a trip and not having the money to go. You and I have talked about that. I'll deal with the consequences of it later. That's
that's me.
Yeah,
You bet.
I'm going to go, and when I get back, then we'll deal with whatever happens next.
I will tell you one thing really quick. And I've had this happen to me always, because I don't focus on money, but Sandra and I said we had this opportunity to buy a block of land, the one we're living in right now. And it was $120,000, which by Australian standards is like the cheap.
Right.
We had about $20,000. I said to Sandra, oh, well, we're going to buy this. No worries. The universe will provide.
Right.
This is what happens to me all the time. Only about 2 days later, my brother said, oh, come and have a chat. He said, oh, we sold the business. You're sharing it. It's 120 grand. There you go. Absolutely true. And this has happened about 4 times.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Yeah, if it feels right, you go for it. Go for it.
Well, apparently the universe, as you see it, apparently cares about you enough to
make it happen.
The universe will only give you what it decides you are actually needing. It doesn't mean you go to the universe and say, I want money. No. It doesn't work like that. You don't demand anything. You don't go and ask. You just let it unfold. And if it's meant to come to you, it will. If it's not, it won't. Easy.
Yeah. Well, I realize we're talking about two different things, but where God is concerned, he, biblically speaking, he encourages us to ask him for what we need. And he says, if it's something you need, then, and you ask, he's not going to turn you down. One of the examples is if a father on earth, if the son asks his father for bread, does he give him a stone? I love that particular verse. Doesn't mean we should ask him for things we don't need. Like, I don't need a Mercedes. I'm not going to go ask God for an expensive car or things like that. But I have no problem asking him for things that I need, like praying for a future spouse. That's something that was important to me, and it took 30, 40 years to answer my prayer in his way, not my way. And I don't feel bad asking for certain things, but this is a difference in opinion on that one point, and that's okay. Um, okay, so I think we're at the last one, and then we'll shut it down. We'll say goodbye to everybody. Last question.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Philosophically, do you believe looking back, in inverted commas, hinders one from, inverted commas, moving forward? Ooh, I think I had to comment on that one a bit before, but okay. Philosophically, do you believe looking back hinders one from moving forward? Question.
Prevents one?
Prevents, yes. Oh, sorry,
Prevents,
hinders.
okay.
Hinders, I said.
Hinders.
Did I say prevents? I was thinking. Yeah, hinders. Sorry.
Ooh, I'll go.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I think it can.
Mhm.
I think if you get stuck there looking back. But you know, I think there are times that looking back propels you forward.
Ooh, good point.
I think sometimes when we overlook things that we need to walk through and look at and dig into, or what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it, but just analyze, I guess.
Yeah,
It can keep us stuck.
sure.
So I think in some cases, yes. I think sometimes people can look backward and get stuck there, and regret is a perfect example. People can get stuck in regret and
Sure.
just not being in the present, like we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
But gosh, I even think looking forward. I think there are people that look forward too much
Mm,
and it keeps them stuck, even though time's like throttling forward. So
wow.
that's my answer.
Beautiful answer. Thank you for that. I completely agree. It can hinder you. You said it beautifully, Jen, and this is one of those I'm not going to even try to do a better job because you described both things that I would want to describe. I will say specifically, I used to say that the past is nothing more than a signpost where you can look back and see where you've been. The future is like Jen said, the future is not promised. It's okay to look to the future, and plan and try to plan some things and have some things that you go after, but it's not promised. So the best way to experience life is to live in the present, to live for today. Um, I like the way you said that, Jen. So looking at the past, in my own words, looking at the past can be helpful because you can see what mistakes you've made and hopefully not repeat the same mistakes. Um, there's some benefit to doing that, but if you get mired in the past, you're living in past decisions or regret, uh, the shame and guilt of things that you didn't do or that you should have done. That can be a, a pit. I mean, it's just, I couldn't think of the word, but the sinking sand. Um, what do they call that?
Quicksand?
Quicksand. Thank you. I couldn't think of it. I couldn't think of the word. I just kept seeing pit in my head. It's just a pit. Yeah. Um, Quicksand. So you fall into it, and the more you move, the quicker you drop. And so when we're focused on stuff from the past, we can just really be stuck in that place and not seem to get out of it. And just as Jen said, looking too much to the future, living your life today, waiting for something to happen in the future. And in my experience, that future date, that it never comes. So meanwhile, you miss what's right in front of you. You miss the life that you could be having today if you're so focused on the future. So that's a really great question. That's kind of my answer to that. Glenn?
I think it's circumstantial. I think a person can look back and use that as an excuse for not moving forward. But on the other hand, if I see someone who's been in a 40-year cycle of abuse from the day they're born,
Yeah.
how do they move forward unless they continue to look back and reaffirm that they need to leave that behind in order to move forward? It's part of that sort of reinforcement process. So I think it's a double-edged answer. I think in
Right.
some cases it hinders it. in some cases it enhances.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure.
Double header.
I think part of the quality of it is how long you stay in that place. I mean, looking back at it, I don't see that as an issue. You're looking back at the past, or like I said, looking at the future, but how long do you stay in that place? I think you used a good example. If someone's in an abusive relationship for 20 years, there are some better choices for that person rather than staying in that, making better choices to extricate themselves from that situation. But yeah, I think that the amount of time a person spends looking back or looking forward can have an effect on their present, certainly, at least. Okay. Well, I think that we covered all the questions. And let me just take a quick look and make sure that we covered everything.
You're good.
So, okay. I will go over the ending one more time, and there it is. Those words nope, I did that. Spiritual.
Right.
Okay. Quote. Yeah. Okay. So, Linda loved Winnie the Pooh, so it's only fitting that the final quote go with that. Says it all. What day is it? Asked Pooh. It's today, squealed Piglet. My favorite day, said Pooh. And that's all we have for you tonight, guys.
Wonderful.
I appreciate everyone who has hung out with us this whole time. We've pretty much had the, give or take, we pretty much had the same amount of people listening and being involved as we did when we started. So a lot of you, I'm seeing the names that are still in the chat. Thank you for hanging out this whole time. We really appreciate it, and hope that you get some enjoyment out of that. Again, there are two things in the write-up that you can go and take a listen to the song that Glenn put in there. I listened to it too, and I love his descriptions of the song. He should be a reviewer for.
No, that's audio machines. Like that's in inverted commas. That's their description. I'm not that good. Come on.
It's like, dang, Glenn. I always assumed it was you.
Yeah, I should have.
No.
Mr. Poetry.
I should have noticed the quotes. Yeah.
No. I wouldn't be able to do that. Not in a million years.
Yeah.
And it's if you were in agreement, there's going to be another show next weekend.
Yeah.
I haven't discussed it with you yet, but if you give me free reign, it's like blackmail, isn't it?
No.
But next, if you say it's okay, I'll just give a little intro if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
I would like to dedicate next week's show to Sandra, because I think she has a different view of the world, but I think there's some equally insightful things that will come from that, hopefully. And I'm very much looking forward to writing it. And I've discussed it with her, and we've had a great chat about it. She's more than happy. But I think we can. Two wonderful people, and two amazing people, two beautiful people, and I love them both dearly. Thank you.
Awesome.
I would be honored to have that be attributed to her. That's wonderful.
I'd love to read something of Sandra's.
Yeah. That's great.
The thing is, we were living as man and wife so fast, we didn't have much time to write to each other. Because we
oh, geez, what does that say about Jason
well,
and I?
only like 3 or 4 emails each, and bye.
So, Jason and I write each other all the time. Live in the same apartment.
Same apartment. I just find it comforting to write my thoughts down. I'm very capable of telling Jen how I feel about her, but there's something about writing it down. And also, if something were to happen to me, then she at least has my words that come from my heart she'll have the memory of me, but she'll have lots of things written by me to look back at. And me too. I like looking at things I wrote 10, 20 years ago. And keeps you honest, and you also looking at it as a signpost to road sign showing where I've been and where I am at that time. I think there's a lot to say about that. So yes, of course, please do that for next week, and we'll look forward to hearing how that turns out. I really respect Sandra, and having met her when you guys came to visit, I just think she's wonderful, and I've appreciated spending time with you guys while you guys were here, and I hope we get another chance. Jen and I would love to visit Australia, and who knows, the quote unquote universe might provide, but I can't ask. So
That said, no. If the universe says, if you seek, you will not receive.
that's the opposite of
I know.
You will find.
But
Yeah,
we're all different.
All right, guys. So that's it for us. Thank you for hanging out. 15 minutes later than we normally go, but I think it was very much worth it. I started to say that the song with its description is in the description. You can click on it and listen to it. I definitely suggest it. I really like this group. There are a lot of instrumentals, and some are way more moving than others, in my opinion. But they just have a great set of music there. And also Linda's letter, my mother's letter, is also in the description. If you care to read that on your own, you can click the link and go and do that when you have time to do it. Okay, so let's go to Glenn. Glenn, say goodbye to the peoples.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and your kindness and generosity is so appreciated, and look forward to being here next week for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you for the write-up. It was wonderfully written. It was very touching, and thank you also for sharing my mother's writing with all of us. It was great to hear that. You're up, Jen. Say goodbye to the peoples for me.
Good night, peoples. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us tonight and hanging in there as I read, and answering the questions and just being a part of the discussion. We really appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
being
we
a
do.
part of open, authentic discussions. Just very lovely.
You're right. And thank you, Jen, for being willing to read that. And I again, there's no need to apologize about your emotions, because their emotions are part of reading something like that. To me, it's more believable if the reader is moved by it. At least that's the way I feel about it. And I love that you're able to connect to the material that she wrote the way that you did. So
your mom was an amazing woman, and I can't wait to meet her.
Yeah.
She really, really helped me by Glenn sharing letters and things that she wrote about what she gave up due to decisions that she made. It just really came at such a timely fashion for me to get an even better look at my situation and realize, okay, I need to get out of this. So I felt very much connected to her, and very grateful and thankful to her for the things that she said. And it just really hit me, like really, really touched me. So
thank you, Jen. I appreciate that. Okay, and I'll say goodbye to the peoples myself. Goodbye, peoples. Thank you so much for joining. Again, as Glenn said, we appreciate every one of you that have take the time to listen. Again, if you have any suggestions of, we did a show on Thursday. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that, please take a listen and look at the subjects in the description, and let us know if any of those appeal to you, or if you have topics that you would like to hear us talk about other than what's listed, then please share that with us. We definitely want you to be involved in TSL. TSL is True Story Live. And so over the past couple shows, we're starting to tell true stories finally, after all this time. Doesn't mean that what we've done so far are lies. It just means that, well, speaking for myself, I'm interested in hearing people's true stories, and I want to be able to share that, because I believe that there is a value for other people that may have gone through the same things that we go through. And what good does it do? You just keep it to yourself, and no one gets a chance to learn from the things that you've done right and the things you've done wrong. I mean, someone can benefit from that. I think there's a lot of value in that. If you want to share your story with us, you can send your suggestions and your story to truestorylive.cripps@gmail.com. And again, if you have anything you want me to pass along to Jen or Glenn, I love saying that, Jen or Glenn or Jen, then just put that in the subject line and I'll make sure and forward that on to them. All right, that's it for us this week, guys. I hope everyone has a good week, and we'll return again next Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until then, good night and God bless. Thanks.